Music Theory 1, Part 7, with Odessa Balan. A closer look at chords and their function. Earlier in this series, you learned about the different kinds of notes, clefs, and time signatures. You learned about the circle of fourths and fifths, the major keys, and their relative minors. You also learned about intervals and how to build chords on each scale degree. Now it's time to take a deeper look at chords and their function in music. Names and Roman numerals. In Part 6 of this series, you learned about the names and function of each scale degree: the tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, and leading tone. We use the same names and functions for the chords built on each scale degree: tonic, C major; supertonic, D minor; mediant, E minor; subdominant, F major; dominant, G major; submediant, A minor; leading tone, B diminished. Back to the tonic, C major. The most important note or chord in a scale is number 1, or the tonic. So the function of the other notes or chords refer to how or if they pull the listener back to the tonic, or to another note that then pulls the listener back to the tonic. So we have the first note is the tonic, second note is supertonic, third is the mediant, fourth is the subdominant, fifth is the dominant, sixth is the submediant, and seventh is the subtonic in minor or the leading tone in major. Chord inversions. Let's take a closer look at the tonic triad or chord in C major. The root position tonic chord is also known as a 1-5-3 because the interval between the bottom note to the top note, C, to G, is 5 notes apart, or a fifth. And the interval between the bottom note to the middle note, C to E, is 3 notes apart, or a third. But we shorten this label to just 1. Here is the first inversion of the C major triad, or chord. The first inversion of the tonic chord is also known as a 1-6-3 because the interval from the bottom note to the top note, E to C, is 6 notes apart, or a sixth. And the interval from the bottom note to the middle note, E to G, is 3 notes apart, or a third. But we shorten this label to a 1-6. Here is the second inversion of the tonic triad or chord in C major. The second inversion of the tonic chord is also known as a 1-6-4 because the interval between the bottom note and the top note, G to E, is 6 notes apart, or a sixth. And the interval between the bottom note and the middle note, G to C, is 4 notes apart, or a fourth. The only thing required for the chord to be the tonic C major triad is for it to have C, E, and G in the chord. But it doesn't matter which note is on the bottom as long as C, E, and G are all there. Pop quiz. Please pause the video to see if you can answer these questions correctly. Don't worry, the answers are on the next slide. How did you do? Did you get all the answers right? Chord inversions. We can get even fancier with where we place the notes in the C major tonic triad. The bottom note tells us which inversion we have. If C is on the bottom, it's root position. If E is on the bottom, then it's first inversion, and if G is on the bottom, it's second inversion. We have root position, we have first inversion, and we have second inversion. Here are all of the chords in the C major scale in root position. All chords in root position have the intervals of 5-3, or as having a fifth from the bottom note to the top note and a third from the bottom note to the middle note. But root position is implied without listing the 5-3. Here are all of the chords in the C major scale in first inversion. All chords in first inversion have the intervals of 6-3, or as having a sixth from the bottom note to the top note and a third from the bottom note to the middle note, but we shorten that label to just 6 next to each number. Here are all the chords in C major in second inversion. All chords in second inversion have the intervals of 6-4, or as having a sixth from the bottom note to the top note and a fourth from the bottom note to the middle note. So we can have root position chords, we can have first inversion chords, and we can have second inversion chords. Pop quiz. Please pause the video to see if you can answer these questions correctly. Don't worry, the answers are on the next slide. How did you do? Did you get all the answers right? The three minors. There are 3 different kinds of minor scales: natural, harmonic, and melodic. Natural minor is also known as the relative minor and uses the same notes as its relative major. In harmonic minor, we raise the 7th note of the scale. In melodic minor, we raise the 6th and 7th notes going up, but put them back to natural minor going down. Here is the A natural minor scale. Here is the A harmonic minor scale. Here is the A melodic minor scale. The chords built on the A natural minor scale are the same chords as its relative major, C major, just in a different order, starting on A instead of C. All chords in root position have intervals of 5-3, or as having a fifth from the bottom note to the top note and a third from the bottom note to the middle note, but root position is implied without listing the 5-3. Here are the root position chords in a harmonic minor. Notice how the raised 7th, the G sharp, changes chord number 3 to an augmented chord. The 5th is larger than a perfect 5th. The G sharp also changes the 5 to a major chord and the 7 to a diminished chord, where the 5th is smaller than a perfect 5th. Here are the root position chords in A melodic minor. Notice how the raised 6th, the F sharp, changes the 2 to a minor chord, the 4 to a major chord, and the 6th to a diminished chord. The 5th is smaller than perfect. The raised 7th, the G sharp, changes the 3 to an augmented chord, where the 5th is larger than perfect. It changes the 5 to a major chord and the 7 to a diminished chord, where the 5th is smaller than perfect. Here are the 3 types of minor scales, all in the key of A minor. We have A natural minor, we have A harmonic minor, and we have A melodic minor. Pop quiz, please pause the video to see if you can answer these questions correctly. Don't worry, the answers are on the next slide. How did you do? Did you get all the answers right? Here are the 3 types of minor scales in first inversion. Notice how the chords and Roman numerals change to diminished, minor, major, or augmented, depending on the type of minor. We have A natural minor, we have A harmonic minor, and we have A melodic minor. Here are the 3 types of minor scales in second inversion. Notice how the chords and Roman numerals change to diminished, minor, major, or augmented depending on the type of minor. We have A natural minor, we have A harmonic minor, and we have A melodic minor. Primary chords. When using chords to harmonize melodies, there are 3 chords that are most used. Those chords are called the primary chords, or the primary triads, which are 1, 4, and 5, or the tonic, subdominant, and the dominant. The primary chords or triads, that is, the chords or triads most used, are the same numbers for both major and minor keys. Here are the primary chords in C major: the 1 chord, C major, the 4 chord, F major, and the 5 chord, G major. Here are the primary chords in A minor: the 1 chord, A minor, the 4 chord, D minor, and the 5 chord, E minor. Harmony. The reason 1, 4, and 5 are the chords that are the most used is because they set up the key of the song. We can use the 1, 4, and 5 chords to harmonize the C major scale like this. The 1, 4, and 5 chords set up the key for the song in minor keys as well. How well they set up the key depends on the type of minor used. This is how it sounds in A natural minor. When we have the raised seventh in A harmonic minor, we change the 5 chord to E major. The E major chord then helps to pull the listener back to the tonic, or the 1 chord, setting up the key 5, 1. And it sounds like this. When we raise both the 6th and 7th notes in A melodic minor, we change the 4 chord to D major and the 5 chord to E major. When both of these chords are major, it pulls the listener to the tonic, or the 1 chord, even more, 4, 5, 1. And it sounds like this. Pop quiz. Please pause the video to see if you can answer these questions correctly. Don't worry, the answers are on the next slide. How did you do? Did you get all the answers right? Most commonly used chords in minor. Here is a list of the most commonly used chords and their Roman numerals in minor. Some of them are from the natural minor scale, and some of them are from the harmonic minor scale. We have the 1 chord, A minor. We have the 2 chord, B diminished. We have the 3 chord, C major. We have the 4 chord, D minor. We have the 5 chord, E major. We have the 6 chord, F major. We have the 7 chord, G major, and we also have the 7 diminished chord, G sharp diminished. If you look closely, you will see that both the subtonic triad, the major 7 chord, and the leading tone triad, the diminished 7 chord, are included in the list of the most commonly used triads. The subtonic triad, built on the 7th scale degree of the natural minor scale, that is, the major 7 chord, G major, is regularly used in popular songs, while the diminished 7 functions like the dominant 7th chord and leads the listener back to the tonic, that is, pulls the listener back to 1 or 1. So the diminished 7 chord is the G sharp diminished chord, which sounds a little bit like the dominant 7th chord, which pulls the listener back to 1. Please review what you learned. Chords can be built on each note of the major or minor scales. The 3 kinds of minor scale chords help give us variety when harmonizing a melody. Chord inversions also help give variety to our harmonies. Thank you for viewing. Feel free to go back in this video to review what you learned. Stay tuned for more theory with Odessa.